Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 80 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about what is probably the most important stock in the, almost said stock market, but really in the entire world. And somebody actually said that the other day, and the reply was like, "Don't you think you're being a little bit hyperbolic?" And he responded, "Oh, I meant to say in the history of the world." And I think that's pretty accurate. And so I'm already a Bitcoin maximalist, and I think that Bitcoin is going to transform the world. So I think anyone who can own Bitcoin, self-custody it, and be responsible should do so. And there are many advantages to Bitcoin over MicroStrategy. However, owning MicroStrategy during this next bull market could actually stack more, I know, fiat dollars than Bitcoin would. And some people will say, well, the value of Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and that's the point. Like, stop even thinking about what it trades for in US dollars, which I basically consider monopoly money. However, in our current system, you have to log onto an exchange for the most part, and then you're gonna buy Bitcoin with dollars. So you need someone to give you dollars, and if you want to get some Bitcoin, because everybody who owns Bitcoin and is trying to sell it wants dollars. So you got to get some dollars. You want to own those dollars for as short a period of time as humanly possible. You want to immediately take those dollars and convert it to something useful instead of something useless. And since MicroStrategy is a leveraged long Bitcoin position, just on that principle alone, it can go up. But I've been watching these videos by, was it Punter Jeff and what's the other X account, Ryquant, and they also, I think they have, is it Ryquant Bros or something, is the YouTube channel. They got a couple of videos there. They said they're going to start making some more. But then Punter Jeff got interviewed by Preston Pysh, and that was pretty riveting as well. And so there's all these factors that could align, and I guess I, have to say every frickin' time, not financial advice or whatever, but if these things align, he's got his own little spreadsheets, and it's really out there. To the level of detail and the valuation models that they put together. And if Bitcoin just hits like really even some bearish, what some people would consider bearish levels, 100,000, 150,000, 200, 250,000, not even like a million. I used to follow Plan B's model just as a kind of general guideline on the timing. That's when I first started kind of really even noticing, oh, hey, there's this 4-year bull market, bear market cycle, but then there's he I guess he's got like a East Coast West Coast beef with Plan G. This other guy that came up, I don't know if he came up with it, but I think he did, but he certainly champions the power law model for Bitcoin, and they pretty much seem to have similar cycles, but the power law model is kind of having is predicting some diminishing returns. So whereas we were getting some 10x order of magnitude increases every cycle, they're saying, we might not get a 10x this cycle, so we may have to wait another 2 or 3 cycles, I think, to get to 1 million. Whatever. It kind of doesn't matter, except that when these guys start modeling MicroStrategy's price, if the frickin' stars align and Bitcoin's 150,000 or something, MicroStrategy is like 10K plus, and that's almost kind of like the bear case. So MicroStrategy by then, just off the Bitcoin price alone, is going to skyrocket. But then they mentioned they're going to get all of these index fund inclusions. They actually talked about them getting kicked out of one. They got kicked out of the 600, the S&P 600, and they got to be crying themselves to sleep because I believe they said that MicroStrategy is still in the Russell IWM and something, was it Vanguard? VTI, whatever the hell that stands for. And I've got Vanguard with my company's retirement, and I'm pretty pissed off that when I called them, I'm like, look, can I just get into VTI? Can I get into any of this other stuff? And they're like, oh, no, we have all these Vanguard mutual funds. And I'm like, I don't want any of that crap. I would honestly, I would just be like, give me 100% MicroStrategy because I don't need this money. I don't need it to do anything until I retire. So, you know, the volatility doesn't bother me at all. I've the only reason I even went and signed my account, I couldn't remember my username and password. I don't give a shit about that money, and I don't put any of my own money into it. It's just whatever the company puts in. So I don't care if it goes up and it goes down and it goes up and goes down. I'm never going to even know the value of it. But I finally logged in just to see if I could borrow some money so that I could get my hands on it so I could put it into MicroStrategy. And instead of this bullshit, I don't even know what they got me involved. You know, I went to the thing and I picked like whatever. I think I probably just picked whatever mutual fund had the lowest management fee and just didn't even care about anything else. At least that's a guaranteed return. So, you know, a couple of the valuation models had like MicroStrategy, like if all the stars align, I mean, like it's kind of like a you know, Giga Chad mega bull case was like MicroStrategy at 50K or something stupid. And so that is, I'm not necessarily banking on any particular number, but I'm banking on it being big and bigger than Bitcoin. So, you know, people say, oh, you got to take the tax hit and the blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. You pay your taxes. You know, do your taxes. I don't know what people want to hear. Like that's a get out of jail free card or like a fucking automatic I win button when they say, oh, but you're going to have to pay taxes. I'm like, well, no shit. I mean, I just got my annual raise the other day, 3.7%, and I didn't say, oh, you know what? Keep the raise because I don't want to pay higher taxes in a higher tax bracket. Like, nobody turns down money. And if I can work a little bit of arbitrage, I don't even know if arbitrage is the right word. I might be just making up shit now. But if I almost kind of I was using Bitcoin and MicroStrategy almost kind of like as a trading pair against Tesla, actually. It's the only thing that I trade other than Bitcoin and Bitcoin derivatives. And so at the end of 2025, if MicroStrategy is at the moon or whatever, I would consider trimming some. But these guys that talk about MicroStrategy, I mean, they talk about it with the same laser-eyed, just psychopathic zeal as the rest of us Bitcoiners talk about. You buy Bitcoin and never sell it. I mean, that's how they feel about MicroStrategy. And I think that's a little bit overstated because even Michael Saylor, when he speaks, he's like, look, my company, you know, Bitcoin's going to be around in 500 years, but my company won't. Like, I won't, you won't. I don't know, that guy that's trying to live forever, he might be around. The guy that eats whatever and takes 100 pills a day or something. Anyway, that works out for him. Maybe I'll jump on that bandwagon and I can enjoy my Bitcoin into infinity. But the point is that there are some third-party risks. I mean, if Michael Saylor, something happens to him, will MicroStrategy still continue to execute the strategy? Oh, I made it this far and I still haven't talked about the friggin' strategy. So MicroStrategy is executing a speculative attack basically on the US dollar. And the way that I understand it is that a speculative attack is when you borrow or obtain weak money, which in this case is the US dollar. Even though it's the strongest currency in the world, it's still soft as shit compared to Bitcoin. So they borrow US dollars and then they take the weak currency and they purchase Bitcoin. So they're taking a weak currency and buying the strongest currency known to humankind. But that's not even the full part of the speculative attack. So the way that when these guys borrow money, when they borrow it, it's not like they go to the vault and say, here's $500 million in cash, just wheelbarrows full of fucking hundreds or whatever. They just press a button, and pressing that button just adds money to the register. So they're just printing money, money printer go burr, and that extra money makes the already weak dollar weaker because you're diluting it with more dollars. The more they print, the weaker the dollar gets. So then MicroStrategy has traded weak dollars and made them weaker, but they don't own weak dollars anymore. They own the strong currency, and they get to pay the bank back in the currency that they've just made weaker. So they got it when it was weak, they weakened it, and now they get to pay the loan back in weaker future dollars, which are only going to get weaker as inflation continues to to take place over time. So the dollars that they pay this loan back with in next year, the year, 10 years from now, ain't going to be worth shit compared to what they are today, because as everyone has noticed, the price of things go up. And the secret kind of thing that people don't really, I don't think they think about when they hear that inflation is 3%, they're like, oh, well, the price is, if something is $1, then the price goes up 3 cents. That's not so bad. And then, so in your mind, you're thinking, okay, well, it'll be 3 cents next year, $1.03, and then it'll be $1.06, and it'll be $1.09, and then it'll be $1.12. That's how they think about it. And it's absolutely incorrect, because it's not just 3% on the dollar forever. It's 3% on the dollar this year, but it's 3% on top of 1.03 next year, and then it's 3% on top of 1.06 next year, and then 3 times, 3% on top of that. And so then once you get to, at some point, 3% makes it go up 4 cents instead of 3 cents. So it's basically the inverse of compound interest. It's compound inflation. And then if they say, oh, well, inflation has come down. Okay, come down from what? 5% to 3%. But that doesn't mean the price of your eggs went from, $5 to $4.75. It just means that the rate that they went up decreased. So it's almost kind of like two drag racers speeding up, but one is speeding up faster than the other one. Or when inflation comes down, one guy just let off the gas a little bit, but he's still accelerating. He's still accelerating like crazy. He's just not accelerating as fast as the other guy. So a lot of people, I don't think, really realize what inflation, how it just kind of snowballs. And so, I own as much MicroStrategy as I possibly can. But then, since my strategy is selling covered calls, I actually kind of got wrecked over the last few weeks on this run up. I mean, I was here, and I think You know, I might have gotten paid when it was 600. What? I got paid $3,000 probably for that. 10% would have been 6. Yeah, I probably got paid 2 or 3 grand. But then when it was like here, I had to I had to roll over like 30 grand. And then I got paid, 10 or 15, and then I had to roll it back for another 30 grand or something. So I did not make as much money on MicroStrategy as I would have if I had just hadn't sold any covered calls against it. I would have just tripled my money, but I absolutely did not triple my money. And, the people who've been telling me, oh, you're picking up pennies in front of steamrollers, they'll probably laugh at me for this. But it still kind of just doesn't matter, because with these proceeds, I'm also purchasing more shares of MicroStrategy. So I do actually collect 100%. I'm 100% long in some shares. And I normally don't really do that, but in MicroStrategy's case, I want to buy every dip. And like when I'm looking at this, so the last time MicroStrategy pumped after they bought Bitcoin, everybody freaked the hell out when Bitcoin, I guess, pumped or whatever. Everything was pumping at this time. And MicroStrategy went, 200 to 5x over here, right? But I'm kind of looking at this like, is this jump right here from 600 to 1800, is that this blip? This little blip from 160 to 320. So this doubling right here. I mean, this is a triple. We tripled up from here to here. So is this little double, is that a triple now? And this is just the beginning of rocketing a 5x. 3. So 5x from here, but 3x from here. So 300 too. So if we, this is just hypothetical shit. It's fun that I make no predictions whatsoever. But if this scaled to this, would we be looking at like, within another, how long did this take? So this is December 2020. It took December, January, February, so 2 months. So in 2 months, could this rocket to 3,500 or 8? That would be interesting. Yeah, 3x would be to 5,100. So double to 3, 3,500, triple to 5,100. So I've been much, much, much more conservative on trying to collect premium. I've been hunting call away value instead. Now this could easily just crash back down. I don't think it would crash back down to 7 necessarily, but if it gave up half of its gains, that wouldn't surprise me at all. So, or that's me glass half full type shit. But it could be here. What if this whole entire, let's look at the other side of the coin. So it's not just the rose-colored glasses, ever the optimist. What if this is the top and it's about to go from 1K to 450 before it bottoms out? So what if this gets cut in half? If this gets cut in half to 900, yeah, it's 1,800-ish almost right now. So if this gets cut in half to 900 over a couple of months, I'll be collecting, I'll be selling covered calls a week, and I think I got like $5,000 or something. I tried to account for at least 10% call-away value in case this rockets up from 1,800 to 2,100. I picked the 2,100 strike, and so. Yeah, I collected about 3%, 3.5% call away. And I kind of couldn't help myself. I wanted to go a little. I generally absolute minimum, I want to collect 1% premium. Otherwise, if I can't get that on a stock, it's kind of not worth trading. And I'm in that little bit of a dilemma with Tesla right now, because not only is it tanking, but the premium is shit. So it's kind of like really pissing me off. It's a double whammy. But if I if I had gone up and only collected 1%, like if I had just tried to collect $1,700, $1,800, I think the strike would have been like 2,500 or 2,800 or something. Now I will be embarrassed as shit if it does cross my 2,100 strike again in just a week and I get wrecked. But this past week actually wasn't too bad because it went from here to here, and I think I was able to roll it and either break even or the small credit. Yeah, I think it cost me about $1,000 a roll from here. So I still got a bit of a credit. So I got a credit, and I was able to move the strike up from 1,800 to 2,100. So like 10-15% call away value, plus rolled it for a credit, and that's just weekly. So this is insane. And and with that credit, I went ahead and bought a couple more shares of MicroStrategy. So I've been covering my small account a lot, and I thought that would be fun for new investors or people that want to try selling options. But normally what I would do is I would take the premium that I sold, like if I get $50 here or $100 here, I would just buy extra shares, and I would try to get to another 100 shares of HUT as fast as possible. But with the, I basically think about owning MicroStrategy as a Bitcoin call option at this point. So I'm actually saving my money in MicroStrategy. So all the premium that I am collecting, I'm just buying MicroStrategy, and I already have a half a share. I love that they let me do fractional shares. So I've got a little over half a share of MicroStrategy, and I'm trying to take this small account. I'm doing a challenge like, hey, how long will it take me to get this, turn this into an account that can day trade? So got to get it to 25K. So starting with 5K, going to try to get it to 25, and at very, very conservative profits, I think this could be done in 4 years. So maybe that's not amazing to the people who day trade or the people who do momentum trading or whatever, but that absolutely destroys the buy and hold crowd, the dividends crowd, the real estate crowd. And it's very simple. I think options are too scary for some people, but it's a very simple process, and it doesn't take very much time. So as a day trader, you have to sit there in front of your screen for 8 hours, waiting for whatever you want it to happen, and wait for some money to pile into your lap, and then you make the trade, and then you close the trade, and then you're happy. But literally, just every Friday, I roll my options. Like CLSK. My average cost on this is $23.87. So I've basically lost $400 if you just compare it to the price. So this actually shit the bed after hours, but it wasn't that bad earlier. So I sold a 24 strike. That's like 10% call away value if it went from 22 to 24, and I collected like $1? No, 86 cents. So $86, which is like 5%. No, not quite 5. Maybe 7-8%, because this was trading at 22. So this is 4%. Yeah, I collected 4% premium. Just pure ROI in my pocket, guaranteed, and then allowed 10% potential call away value in case this went to 24. Now, of course, you don't get to decide what the stock actually does. So I don't know if somebody's taking profits or whatever the hell happened, but it's gone down. But that's the point. So really, when this says my cost basis is $23.87, I just got paid $86. So my average cost is $23. So I did not take as big of a loss as the people who bought $23.87 and sold no covered call. because they wanted unlimited upside in case this went to 30. Well, it didn't go to 30. It went to 1909. So I almost feel like basically stacking MicroStrategy is almost cheating on this account, because I'm trying to highlight what you can do with just selling covered calls. And eventually you want to achieve critical mass, meaning if HUT is what, 10, 12 bucks right now, 11. If I can collect $1,000, $1,100 premium per week, then I can add an extra covered call every week. And so that's when the ROI really starts to become compound interest, and it starts increasing exponentially. So instead of getting 1% a week, you're getting 1% times 1% a week, which if you get 1% a week for 52 weeks, that's 52% interest. But if you get 1.01 raised to the 52nd power, then you're getting 67% returns for the year, which 67% a year compared to 7% on the SPY index sounds like a better deal to me. All right, that's all I really wanted to talk about was the most important stock, in my opinion, and a few other people's opinions, in the market right now, maybe ever, because by the time other stocks have a chance to become this important, Bitcoin might be so important that the stock market is kind of irrelevant. I don't know if it'll ever be completely irrelevant. I think Tesla is the only other one that I'm aware of. As Stephen Mark Ryan of Solving the Money Problem says, it's the best risk-adjusted opportunity in the stock market, with the qualifier of that he's aware of. And the only thing that I can think of that gets me even remotely excited as MicroStrategy, is Tesla, because once they get FSD figured out, that's a money printer. Every car company on the planet is probably going to have to license that, and then they're just going to put FSD into their robots, and we will have billions of humanoid robots running around doing our laundry and gardening, weeding our gardens and doing whatever the hell else. And I can't even imagine what the world's going to look like when there's no labor market, because the cost of labor will have been driven down by the robots to zero, and there just won't be any wages to be had. There's literally no wages on the planet for anyone. If you wanted a job, you couldn't get one because the robots do everything. I don't know what the world's going to look like then. It's either going to be utopia, or there might be some shit on fire. So it's uncertain times. But MicroStrategy and Tesla, the only two stocks I really own. I dabble around with the little mining stocks, especially on this small account. But that's only just because on a small account I can't afford 100 shares of MicroStrategy, or I would absolutely use that vehicle instead. It's funny because I would have tripled my IRA, but because I couldn't afford to roll my 100 shares of MicroStrategy back when it was like 500 a share, so worth about 50 grand, I couldn't afford to roll it. And so I ended up losing my shares. Now, I didn't have any tax consequences because it was an IRA, but I would have tripled my IRA had I not sold any covered calls in it. But instead, I ended up having to form a poor man's covered call, which I bought a real deep in the money, as deep as the money of a leaps as I could get in MicroStrategy, and then just sold covered calls against that. So I'm still collecting crazy premium in my IRA. It's just I don't own the shares, and I'm at greater risk because if MicroStrategy if gets a haircut and falls to 900, that deep in the money leaps is not going to be very deep in the money anymore. In fact, it would probably be underwater, and I would probably lose half my value in that account. But I don't need to access that money for a very long time, so it just doesn't matter. I will absolutely say that it's a good idea to trade the correct size of your account. I almost blew up my account in 2022 when everything went to shit, when the Fed raised rates. I had some long options, mostly Tesla, and they just disintegrated. So when Tesla went from 400 to 100, my deep in the money 300 strike options went out of the money, and you lose like 75% of your value. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, it'll be safe to get a 200 strike when it's 300. I'll get a deep 200 strike in the money option, do some more covered calls, and then then the price drops to 200, and they're not in, below 200, and those aren't in the money anymore, and then you lose 75% again. So I got completely wrecked, and that's why I'm really desperately trying to hold on to these shares, and that's why I have an extra 50 shares that don't have any covered calls against them, because if this rockets up to 2,500 in a week or something stupid, then I'll get the full unlimited upside on those 50 shares, and I can use that to roll to next week, and I won't lose. I won't have to be forced to sell off my shares. I basically intend to hold MicroStrategy at a minimum to the end of 2025, and if possible, I'm thinking forever. But yeah, I probably will take a little bit of a trim, take a little bit of a haircut at the end of 2025 just to readjust. If Tesla hasn't blown up yet, then reallocating into some Tesla, will probably do something like that. All right, so that's what I'm doing with MicroStrategy. Definitely go and search and watch some of these videos for yourselves. And if you're already, it's going to be crazy because I don't think the stock market has ever seen anyone hold stock with diamond hands like Bitcoiners will. And so these Bitcoiners who will never sell their Bitcoin have noticed that MicroStrategy is a vehicle that they can treat with that same ferocity, and they will never, if the price drops from 1,800 to 900, they've already proven that they can just gut it out. They don't care. They'll just wait forever and ever and ever. So these institutional investors, and when it gets included in the index funds, and they have to buy it. They have to buy it any price. Every time someone's money comes in for the SPY, they have to go out and buy the stocks that are in the S&P 500. So they have no choice but to buy MicroStrategy and these other stocks at whatever they're trading at. So that will be interesting. Anyway, that's way longer than I intended to go today. So that's it for now. Be good, y'all.